Hi, I'm Eric Poulin.
And I'm Robin Poulin.
We're the co-founders of Calendar Budget, and welcome to the Calendar Budget podcast.
I can pay cash, I can pay check, I can pay wire transfer, I can pay gift card, I can pay credit, I can pay anything you like. I can pay cash, I can pay check, I can pay wire transfer, I can pay gift card, I can pay credit, I can pay anything you like.
So today we're going to be talking about how to actually teach children about money. We've kind of reviewed over the past couple of podcasts the importance of it, making the process visible so that kids can see that money is a real thing and it's not just coming out of a piece of plastic. And I guess last week we talked sort of about how to do like a hands-on visual.
Yeah, that Monopoly.
So that's a great way to show people how money works and gets distributed. But today we're going to get a little bit more into the weeds, into the details. At least a little bit more along the path. Taking a kid from no knowledge about money to ideally where you'd like them to be, they're going to follow a similar pattern that adults take. That's similar to what we've been reviewing in these podcasts thus far. You start with identifying wants versus needs, and then you talk about how to save, and you talk about, you just kind of take them along the well-trodden path, as it were. So wants versus needs is the exact place I think makes sense.
Yes.
Especially for kids, because they don't distinguish between them, right? At that age, it's just
Everything's need. I need
Yeah,
a new.
exactly.
Everybody else has it. I must have it.
Yeah, and even younger than that, like young, like grade 1 level, they just don't distinguish between wants and needs. It's a thing. And we wants it precious. To give a Lord of the Rings analogy there. So the idea of delayed gratification comes very much to the forefront here. And this is like
Being able to save for it.
instant gratification versus delayed gratification. So I wrote an article a long time ago about us now living in an instant gratification society where we expect things to be instantaneous. I want my webpage to load in 2 seconds. I want my delivery that I just ordered to arrive tomorrow.
Microwave dinners.
Exactly. Like it's just, we live in that kind of a society. But delayed gratification is actually a marker of success in life and in studies that have been done.
Yeah.
You know where I'm going with this, with the marshmallow experiment.
Yeah.
So
Love
probably most of our listeners have heard of this experiment, but just in case somebody hasn't heard it, I'll quickly review it. So this was an experiment that was done back in the 1960s. I think it was at Stanford. I don't know.
60s to 70s, was it? I think they did it over a period of time in order to see what the outcome is. But
Yeah, so they started it in the 60s, and it's been repeated many times since to validate the results. Every time, same thing.
And
Same
even
exact
we
results.
did a small fraction of that study with our own kids.
Yeah, we didn't.
Experiment for the one day,
We
not
didn't,
over years.
We didn't record the results. Anyway, let me go through the experiment. So the experiment is a child is brought into a room.
It's a 4-year-old at that time.
Yep. A 4-year-old child is brought into a room with an experimenter. They sit down across from each other on a table, and the experimenter puts one marshmallow on the table in front of them. And the child is explained to the child, listen, I have to go to the other room for a few minutes, but don't eat this mushroom.
Marshmallow.
Mushroom. They would never eat it. That's disgusting. Don't eat this marshmallow. And it's obviously, they're not allergic to it.
And they left,
It's a marshmallow. It's super desirable to a kid.
They left a bell with them.
They did, but I'm going to talk about the one without the bell.
Okay.
Basically, they put the marshmallow there and said, okay, don't eat this marshmallow. If you really want to eat the marshmallow, you can go ahead and eat it. But if you can wait until I get back, you can have 2 marshmallows. Okay? So they clearly understood there's a reward for waiting. And then the experimenter would leave. He's not doing anything. They're just observing. This was the whole experiment. To see how long would the kids go before they ate the marshmallow, or would they wait to get the second marshmallow? And of course, those who did wait, they studied over the course of many years what behaviors, and they would do follow-ups with these people. So how are they doing in school? How are they doing behaviorally? How are they doing criminally? And so many aspects they would do. And
when they came back to it when they're about teenagers to see the results.
Yeah. So they found sometimes some kids would eat the marshmallow within 30 seconds. They're just no self-restraint, and they just wanted it. Even though they clearly understood the value that they would get double the amount when they got back.
Yep.
Otherwise, kids would use all sorts of tactics to delay their gratification before they would just finally crack and eat it, or they would wait the whole time and then get two. Not a lot made it to get two, but they would do all sorts of techniques. They would stop looking at it. They would
look around the room.
They'd look around the room and get up off their chair and get active. Anything that they could do to distract themselves from this marshmallow. But so many of them would eventually just eat the marshmallow. And what they did is, as they studied their lives over the course of many years, and like you say, into their teens, they studied their behaviors and how they reacted. And those who were able to delay their gratification, in other words, those who could wait longer periods of time before eating the marshmallow, or ideally, wait until the experimenter came back and get two marshmallows.
Even up to like 15 minutes, I think they had them wait.
Yeah, 15 minutes. Can you imagine? As
a
kid,
4-year-old?
I know, it's unbelievable. Some of them did it though. Those people who did not delay, they had. So I have a list here of all the things. They exhibited more behavioral problems, both at home and at school.
Yes.
They had lower SAT scores. They struggled in stressful situations. They had trouble paying attention. And they had difficulty maintaining relationships. All identified early on from this experiment. Now, what we don't know is this experiment evidentiary, meaning that is it just showing who that kid is, and the experiment didn't change anything, or is it a trained behavior? Can we train somebody to be a pleasure delayer in order to offset some of these maybe negative attributes that they found that these people had?
Yeah.
We don't know that.
Because some people have different challenges in their life that help influence who they are. So if it's a trained behavior, then they can be trained no matter what their challenges are to be able to wait.
Yeah, and the delay, or the difference between the delayers and the people who ate right away is staggering. Like the SAT score between those who could wait the full 15 minutes and those who ate the marshmallow in 30 seconds.
Yeah.
It's like a 200-point difference on the SAT.
Yeah.
That's a massive difference, like in intelligence.
Yes.
Now again, is that telling because it's a learned behavior, or is it just that's the person that this person, like that's the character that this person was going to become eventually, and it's just displayed at an early age? Who's to say? I'm sure there's some more literature about that, but the point is, it's easy to understand that 2 marshmallows is better than 1. And if we can learn to delay our pleasure just a little bit, we can double our reward in many cases. And this directly applies to how money works. It teaches us that saving for something, and if you save it for a long time, through the rule of 72, you can actually double your money.
Yeah.
And it teaches us that waiting doesn't hurt, right? There's no pain involved other than the anxiety of not getting what you want. It builds character, it builds patience, it builds self-control. All things that are valued in society If we can teach that to our children or influence it in any way, all the better, because they're going to get enough peer pressure and stresses in their life that are going to cause them to want to eat the proverbial marshmallow rather than wait and be better people for it.
Like you were saying with the people with the marshmallow, they found alternatives. The same thing can be done when it comes to money. Find alternatives that allow you to maybe achieve what you want in a small scale or wait to delay that gratification.
Yeah, precisely. So that kind of an experiment, again, is a very, it's a corporal study, meaning that it's related to your body and your desires and anxieties and all that. But when it comes to money and influences that we're subjected to, peer pressure is a huge one, and one that affects our spending habits quite a bit.
Yeah.
See this a lot with teenagers who want to keep up with what their friends have.
Yep.
Keep up appearances, as it were, keeping up with the Joneses.
Exactly.
As the phrase that's used usually. So, I'm sure you've seen it with our own kids. What kind of things, when they are going to the mall, or what are they looking for?
Yeah, there are certain stores that are a little more costly that they like those because it's quality material, it's going to last, and it's well recognized by other people.
Yeah, I don't know how much that quality thing is a rationalization or true. I tend to think it's more of a rationalization so that they can feel good about paying more money for this thing that they want, because it will make them fit into their friend group or make them feel like they have more status. But that kind of trying to get the label, the brand, and get the device, got to get the latest iPhone instead of 3 generations old, or heaven forbid an Android. Oh no. Way better phone, by the way. Wait for the comments for that.
Yes. With some of the quality on the materials, though, I have understood and seen for myself that I'm like, okay, I do appreciate the quality of this product much better than the other one, because I know it's not going to go see-through when you move a certain way, or it's not going to break down in half a year and then have to replace it again. But when it boils down to it, it's probably not worth 5 or 7 times the cost often, which ends up coming out. And you're like, why does it cost so much for this? This is just atrocious that they would charge that much.
And my guess is that kind of logical thinking is not what's happening in a teenage brain.
Yeah.
My guess is that is a justification for the actual impulse, which is keeping up with their peer groups, having brand names, and having that sense of self-esteem.
I do find our girls do that somewhat sometimes. And it basically, like you're saying before, it has been a trained thing that I have gone with them okay, so we can go get this same thing at the other store.
Yeah.
It'll be a fraction of the cost. Now, why would I buy this one instead? Mm-hmm. Is there that much difference in quality?
Yeah. Now, part of that, again, is them rationalizing their decision. Mm-hmm. But part of it is training.
Yeah.
That they've been brought up, and we've been fortunate that you have taught them that at a young age.
Yes.
But a lot of kids don't have that kind of teaching, which is part of why we're talking about this today. That teaching needs to be out there a little bit more, so that people can weigh the pros and cons and not worry so much about this keeping up with the Joneses and peer pressure. It's so kind of focused in that teenage years that it's it feels life or death.
Yeah, it's
for them.
stressful and anxious.
Yeah, it's it's their whole world at that point, and they really want to fit in. So it's up to us as parents, as people who are influencing the younger generation, to arm them with tools to help them have better self-esteem, to deal with peer pressure in a better way. Because if you are confident about who you are, if you have more self-worth, you are going to be much less likely to rely on approval from your friend groups to make you feel good about yourself.
Agreed.
And so that's just life hack 101. But it has huge financial impact as well, because ever striving for the latest fad or this and that and trying to keep up with everybody else is probably not going to make you feel happy anyway. And it just is a drain on so many other aspects of your life. The constant funneling of money into a black hole.
The trends change, and you can't always keep up with it. Your pocket's not always available to do that.
Yeah.
I remember one of our babysitters, actually, when the kids were small, her mom had taken her to a secondhand store, and this girl was mortified. She's like, there's no way I'm going into that store. And she's like, well, I'm here. So she goes in with her mom. She's wandering around, waiting patiently for her mom, and she sees these awesome brand name boots that are very gently used, and she is over the moon in love with them. Gets them for maybe $10, which is a huge fraction of the price. And she was sold then. So, okay, secondhand stores, no problem.
Yeah, it takes an experience like that, though, to get over yourself.
Yeah.
You know, the feeling that it's icky in a secondhand store.
Yeah.
And then you go in there and you're like, there's brand name stuff in here for like 90% less than...
Exactly. And then they realized that they could go in and not even say a single thing that they got at secondhand store. Or maybe they feel the need to brag and say, I got it a lot less than you did.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Start a new trend.
Yeah. I guess what I've observed, though, is that society has changed quite a bit.
Yeah.
It's moved from this, what used to be in our parents' generation, and even our generation quite a bit, a reluctance of any kind of help or assistance or charity for even my basic needs in life. Like, I'm going to fend for myself.
Yeah.
And today it feels like people are looking for a handout. They feel entitled to luxuries in life. And that shift from like, I'll wait for it, I'll save for it, to I must have everything and I must have it now mentality is pretty hardcore, and it changes who you are as a person. Mm-hmm. It changes the fabric of society, and it can drastically affect your future if you don't grow out of that.
And affect relationships too.
How would it affect relationships?
Well, if I was that kind of person that I'm willing for the handout and you're the hard saver, we would not be on the same page. And it would be always a conflict then of, well, I needed the new shoes. You did not need them, darling.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, for sure. And in a situation like that, it's easy for us to look at it and judge and say, the person who wants to save is obviously correct. And it just puts strain on the relationship, because the person who refuses to save is constantly causing problems in this relationship. And that might be a very judgy way to look at it. Mm-hmm. Maybe there are reasons in the opposite direction as well. I know people who are like
Save every penny.
so saving that they refuse to live, and that's that's equally hazardous to your health and life.
Just living till they die.
But the concept in society of I deserve this, we talked about this in the past. I hate that word, deserve. Like, that should be restricted for life and death things, and you don't deserve it, really. Let's be honest. Yeah. It just creates a whole generation of spoiled, lazy, ungrateful people who are doomed to be disappointed. Mm-hmm. And nobody wants that. Yeah. Nobody wants a complainer. Nobody wants that kind of person that are...
So you don't want to be either extreme. You don't want to be the pinch every penny, and you don't want to be overspender. So it has to be, if it's a relationship...
a balance.
There has to be a balance, and so there needs to be basically like a third person type in the relationship, and that is your budget.
Yeah.
You treat your budget as another decision maker.
Exactly, and involve them. What does the budget say?
Yeah.
The budget won't let me do it. It's not me, dear. It's the budget that says you can't have it.
Exactly.
Yeah. Now, when children grow into adults, if they haven't been taught some of these principles growing up, they may expect to just continue on living the same lifestyle that their parents are living. Their parents who have been accumulating wealth for decades and are at the peak of their earning potential. Whereas you, leaving the nest, have saved nothing, or maybe only a little bit, and you're at the very bottom of your earning potential. You can't expect rationally to live the same way that your parents were living. It's just not realistic.
Yes.
But again, if you haven't been taught this, and you feel like you deserve it, quote unquote, you're just going to be frustrated, and you're going to hate life. And it's not because life has done anything to you. It's just because you're uneducated and you're, I don't know what to tell you, people. Just, you got to face the realities of life. So yeah, it's important that we get these things out there. We don't want to develop a sense of entitlement because, again, if a kid moves out, has a sense of entitlement, who are they coming to fulfill their sense of entitlement? They're coming back to you, parent, who either taught them to be entitled or didn't teach them better.
They think, I have so many restrictions, I don't want to be at home anymore. I want my freedom. And then when they get out, they realize those restrictions are much like the string on the kite that were helping them to stay happily afloat.
Exactly. Cut the string. I want to fly into the sky. And as soon as they do that, they crash and burn. Yeah, and then they rebound, right? So let's avoid this whole episode. It's terrible for the kid. It's terrible for the parent. Nobody wins. And it's
Terrible
all
for society too, because then they end up somewhat being a burden on society
They do.
depending where they go to.
Yeah, it's a big drain on everybody. And completely avoidable with some education at a young age. So, parents' responsibility. When a kid moves out, or when a kid becomes kind of legal age, what is a parent's actual responsibility for them?
Legally, none.
Yeah,
They have fulfilled their need.
that's right. Now, morally, and because of loving relationships, it's not going to be nothing.
Yeah.
But legally, they have no claim on you anymore, or they have no
You have
claim
no
on,
claim
on
Yeah.
on your income to support them. Much as they may shout about it and cry about it, they're on their own. But few parents are going to do that to their children. We love our children. We want the best for them. We want them to be happy. The only way they can be happy is to teach them correct principles and let them govern themselves.
So if you imagine now that they're, say, 20 years old and they're out on their own and they're falling into pits, they're going to come back and cry to you. And, well, okay, I'll give you a little handout here. 5 years from now, married with kids, and they're coming to you because they, again, can't get formula. And what are you going to do? Okay, we'll give you a hand again. And continue on. It's going to be a repeat cycle until something is learned by that child.
Exactly.
Or you can rewind things to early ages of children and teach them then and save everybody the headache.
Yeah. Easier said than done.
Yeah.
Tell that to somebody who's dealing with teenagers now, or parents or adults who are rebounding.
Or just even that one child that is extremely strong-willed.
Yeah. But it's never too late. That's
Yeah.
the point of this. It's never too late to be educated or to give education.
Or even if you are that parent that hasn't learned it, it's okay.
Absolutely.
There are people to help, including podcasts like these and other financial advisors and things.
For sure. For sure. So the question is, yeah, you don't have any actual legal obligation, but you want to help them, of course. But do you want your adult children being dependent on you? No. Do you want to teach your kids self-sufficiency? Of course you do. That means you have to do it, and you have to learn it yourself first. Another thing to consider is, are you going to leave them an inheritance?
Yeah.
Because that may have some long-term effects. And maybe you are or aren't, but there's no need to tell the kids about that.
Yeah.
Because what is that going to do? it's just going to make them want you to die. Right?
And not work hard for what they will achieve. They're like, well, I'm going to get money later on anyway. Well,
Yeah, and then they'll resent every year longer you live than they think you ought to.
Yeah.
No, this is not a happy way to build a family. Let's enjoy our relationships while we're living, please.
Yes.
Yeah. I would remind them that we live in a society where we have, compared to the rest of the world, riches beyond imagination.
My goodness, yes.
Kids that are struggling with this "I deserve everything" and that kind of an attitude. Like when you look at third world countries, and just look at the whole dynamics of the world. They did a study not long ago. It was a 2010 study that 80% of the world's population lives on less than $10 a day.
Wow.
It's probably $11 a day now because of inflation. But that's still ridiculously low.
Still, even if it's $15 a day.
Yeah, I know, it's so low.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And so the fact that in the United States and Canada and
Many
Mexico
other-
and many other countries, that we are living in such a state of comparative wealth to these countries can be humbling. It should be humbling. If it's not, if it's not humbling, I don't think you understand. The sheer blessing of being born in this country is, you can't even fathom it. Can you imagine having to live on $10 a day,
Yeah.
living in a shack on a dirt floor, and wondering if you have access to clean water or food? That's most of the planet Earth. And we're so fortunate and lucky and blessed to be where we are and how we are.
And there's people even in our own backyard that are in the same situation, that they just haven't figured out the balance of cash flow for them.
Yeah, perhaps they're not like this 80%,
Yeah.
but I'm sure if you look around you, you can identify people who are worse off than you
Yeah.
without struggling too much. Even if you're struggling for money, like, look at what you do have. Maybe you have loving relationships. Maybe you have a kid that's like the apple of your eye. Maybe you have talents that are like that are God-given talents, or whatever it is, that like, we're just being grateful for what you have is one of the greatest dissuasions of depression that there is
Yeah.
anywhere. So being grateful for what we do have, and if you have kids that are ungrateful, maybe just pointing this out to them, that we're so lucky and blessed to have what we have.
There's a verbally of saying it, and then you can also show it. If you happen to go find places that you can do a little bit of service to help a family in need at special times of year or any time of year, whether it's go help at a shelter or something, but of course in their safety, and just show them that this is what that person has to live with.
Yeah, I mean, again, I don't think you have to look around too difficult or
Yeah.
too hard to find people who are less fortunate than you are in some aspect of your life. And serving those other people can really be a humbling experience.
Change their life, and it would also change the attitude of greed as well.
It changes us when
Yeah.
we serve, and it changes our perspective. It makes us less. It makes us less feeling like we deserve everything, like we deserve luxuries. When you see somebody struggling for the basic necessities of life, suddenly having the latest iPhone while you still have a second generation old iPhone, and you see somebody who doesn't have enough money to feed them and their family, it puts things in perspective.
Yep.
And so getting yourself involved, whether, like you said, if you're volunteering, spending some time, donating some of your money to it, these things can really make a difference in who you are, and to our children as well. And teaching them at a young age to donate money or time or effort can really make a difference in them. Well, like we've seen that with our children. When they were young, we taught them to always give 10% of their income away.
Yeah.
They gave it as tithing. Some people donate it to a charity. And in fact, we used this other system for a while where they were earning money through a points reward system, and they could donate some of that money as charity. And we've seen, not all of them, but some of our kids would take some of their points and donate it to charity.
Mm-hmm.
And they feel amazing about it.
They do, that they're
Like-
able to help somebody.
Yeah, absolutely.
We've seen them even as they walk along, they see somebody in need and they'll go buy them dinner or something just to help them. And that they learn to be aware that other people's needs are different and probably not as important as the wants.
Yeah, exactly. So that kind of covers it for today's podcast. Wants versus needs, really distinguishing those for kids and helping them get out of this peer pressure, I deserve everything mindset, and teaching them that there's less fortunate people out there and that we can bless their lives as well. We're so fortunate that we can spread that wealth and happiness around. Until next time, happy budgeting.
Happy budgeting.
I can pay cash, I can pay check, I can pay wire transfer, I can pay gift card, I can pay credit, I can pay anything you like. I can pay cash, I can pay check, I can pay wire transfer, I can pay gift card, I can pay credit, I can pay anything you like.